1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your glad rags on, join me home. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes 1. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
Well, I love an angel, but does she love me? Well, I'll never know, and I'll never be free from this infatuation that lives inside of me. I love an angel, but does she love me?
Played a steel guitar, and Bill played guitar. I tuned my bottom 4 strings on my little steel guitar down to play bass.
Yeah.
And we had a drummer named Lassie and a sax player,
Frank
Dutra. And we all got together. I mean, we met. Bill and I kind of looked at each other across the theater from each other that night that we saw that movie, Blackboard Jungle. And we kind of looked at each other like, you play music, I play music, I want to meet you.
Yeah.
And that's how we met.
Yeah.
And that was, boy, whenever that movie came out, I think that was about 55, don't you think?
And then we decided to meet at my dad's garage.
No, just a minute.
No.
First of all, you came over to my house
I
in
did.
my bedroom where I had my steel guitar
All right. No, I
and
didn't
my
remember
amp.
this.
You and Frank came over, and we were just going to figure out whether we should get together or not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got together,
We got together.
and that's when we started practicing in the garage.
Yeah.
This was in '55, I think it was.
Right.
I'm sure it was.
And then we went to a fair over in Puyallup, Washington, Buck and I, and we saw this young kid, and he was up on like a park bench. I thought he was giving a talk, but he was singing. And so we went up and looked at him, and he's got a bunch of people around him, he's singing, and so we said to him, hey, we're starting a band, you want to be on our band? And he said, sure, you know, and so we had him come and be on our band, and that was Rockin' Robin Roberts.
Yeah, I thought he was saying. I thought he was giving a talk too, because all those people were kind of, you know, clapping and raising their hands and all that. Now he was singing a Little Richard song.
Probably, yeah.
And we said, man, this kid.
We want him.
We want him. We said, you want to be in a rock and roll band? He goes, well, yeah. And he said he was kind of like a Buddy Holly lookalike, only a little more geeky.
Yeah.
And bookworm kind of guy.
But
So
smart.
Yeah, well, he was a smart guy. And but boy, you know, he didn't look like a rock and roll singer. But when he got on stage, was he a killer, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
this guy,
He had a lot of energy.
and he could sing the heck out of any song that he had. And if he didn't know the words, he'd make them up right on the spot. You remember that?
Yeah.
Won't you be mad at me? Rosalie, don't you be mad at me. Well, I don't you be mad, 'cause I'm just a little can't see. Oh, please, 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 Rosalie.
He's also the one that what kind of got us interested in throwing our own dances, which no one in Tacoma was doing. There was no groups in town doing that. We'd throw our own dances because Robin said we could make some money doing this, and we'd rent these halls and then put up posters and throw our own dances. And
You know, we started like the teen dances and garage rock. I mean, we practiced in Bill's garage, and I remember the kids in the neighborhood. You remember?
they
Kids would come around.
Well, I had a little girl who was a mean to me. I drove over, yes, told me I said, hey,
us first met out at a place called McCord Air Force Base. They had a jam session out there. And I was in high school, and a friend of mine said, you got to go out there. So I went out there and I played a song that I had already written, a little tune called Dirty Robber. And they said, you're in the band. So that's how it got started. We had John Grieg, Rich D'Angelo. He was a Army, or not, Air Force brat that lived out there. That's why we met there. And who else? Oh, Marouche was out there, and then we picked up on Mike Burt. And that was the beginning of the Wailers. Well, we weren't together for more than a few weeks or months, and somebody met a guy named Art Mineo, who had a band here in town and had some connections in the music business. Played him a song that we had written at my house called Tall Cool One. He sent it back to New York, and the next thing we know, Clark Gale House flew out here, and after a gig out in Lakewood at the Knights of Columbus, 1 o'clock in the morning, he flew out and recorded one take of the Tall Cool one take of Dirty Robber, one take of Roadrunner, a couple others. Lucille said, see ya. And it seemed like a few weeks later we had a song out there called Tall Cool and it was becoming a hit. Got a phone call from a guy named Dick Clark. Said, you boys want to come out to Philly? And we did. And we had to take my mom with us because we were too young. Some of the guys were like 15 years old. So it was quite an adventure. We toured the East Coast. But you know what? They wanted us to move to the East Coast and become, who knows what would happen. The biggest agency in the world at the time was GAC, and they wanted to manage us. But we were young, and we said, nah, we're going to go home. We missed our girlfriends and so forth. And that was probably not a good move, but we did it.
The Wailers, of course, recorded Louie Louie. It went on the air on KJR in 1961 and went to #1. It came back in 1962, and again it went to #1. The master, a contract was made with Imperial Records that I set up with Lou Chudd, and I begged program directors around the country to play that record, but it was so different. They said, well, that's kind of your, Pat, that's your Northwest dance thing out there, and we don't think that that really has got it. And I couldn't get the national program directors to play it. Paul Revere then tried to record it because he had seen the success of Louie Louie in Seattle, but he was too cute with it. See, he didn't have that gutty Wailers sonic sound to him, and he made a cutesy little version of Louie Louie that didn't happen. But the Kingsmen recognized the real power in Louie Louie, which is the way the Wailers had performed it. And at Connie Barton's studio down there on 5th Avenue, they went in, they recorded it. And the reason the radio stations around the country then played it is that it was released on a New York label. Jerry Denon, who had Sheridan Records, sold the master to a New York record company, VJ, and suddenly Louie Louie is getting played and the rest is history. And only through the most unfortunate set of circumstances does the nation recognize the Kingsmen Louie Louie instead of the Wailers version, and the first version in rock music of Louie Louie.
Louie, Louie, well, I said we gotta go. Yeah, 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 yeah. I said Louie, Louie, well, I said we gotta go.
The sequential movement of the Wailers and their impressions, moving to the sonics that added something new to it, and there is the birth of grunge right there. Fading away for a few years, but those impressions have been left in the minds of Northwest musicians, and soon you have your Cobains and your Vedders and the people that carried forth a tradition that was initiated at the Spanish Castle and by the Wailers, leading to the Sonics and the Viceroys and the Dynamics and the Statics and a multitude of Don and the Good Times and a multitude of bands that were to come along, but always the Northwest sound was unique.
Who's new in town? Well, you better watch out now, or she'll put you down. 'Cause she's an evil chick. Say she's the witch.
You guys put the energy into rock and roll. I mean, the real hardcore energy in 60, 64, 65, before a lot of other people were doing it to that extreme. Is that what you felt like when you were, I mean, when you were making that music, that it was maybe before, you know, before its time? How do you, what do you think when you were doing that?
Well, I thought we weren't the best musicians in the world because we were pretty new at it, but we had the feeling, and we figured, well, we can't beat them with fancy notes and stuff, so we'll just beat them with power.
I'm looking for a girl. She's the sharpest one in the whole wide world.
Strychnine.
Strychnine, that's what I wanted to give them. Yeah, I like the strange things that I felt like that's a whole new area that hasn't been explored. Everybody was singing about, you know, bouncy, bouncy, and onions, yeah, stuff like that. But I like the weirder side of things. You know.
Some folks like water, some folks like wine, but I like the taste of straight strychnine. You may think it's funny.
He's waiting. There's another.
Oh, that's the devil music right there. Yeah, he helped us a lot on that one.
You did. No, but I mean, you know, it's very powerful, you know, and the simplicity of it. But, you know, the magic thing about that was the way it was sung, the way you presented it. And I think all that had to do with, you know, not only Larry on guitar and the power of the band, but, you know, your voice. You know, I could go 2 miles away and hear your voice and I know it's Jerry Wilson.
Hey, Grandma, you're so young. Your old man's just a boy. Little long time this time.
Then there was a time that you went down to Texas, I remember.
Oh,
Was
yeah.
that before this?
That was before.
And,
Yeah, that was right out of high school, pretty much,
right.
with
But
Bobby Fuller.
you played with Bobby Fuller, but who was the drummer on that one? Was that Larry?
Larry Thompson.
Larry Thompson,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's from Tacoma, too.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went down there and taught old Bobby Fuller
Yeah.
a couple lessons.
Well, you know, and he was a hell of a drummer, too. And a very good guitar player. He could play that, in I Fought the Law.
Yeah.
He showed that to me. So, but I showed him little Northwest stuff, too. But then Bob went down to L.A. and bumped into Peter Lewis, son of Loretta Young,
Right.
and good finger picker, good songwriter. And so him and Bob called up me and Don and said they needed a drummer and guitar player.
Perfect.
So we jumped in there, and then here comes this guy, Skip Spence. Complete whack job, man.
Yeah,
I said,
we
this
hear
guy
it.
can't probably even hold a guitar, let alone play one. And so the five of us got together, and it was like that scene out of Indiana Jones when everything clicks, ding, 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 and all the light, and all of a sudden, and then we knew we had something.
Don Wilson from the Ventures, and we're going to have a little talk here and find out what Don's doing. Since 1958, with Walk Don't Run, the Ventures have been, they have never let up 1 year. They've been working every year since. How many albums do you have now, Don?
I almost lost count, but about 250 different ones.
250.
It's come up to me all the time. I mean, even here in the States, you know, and they say, you know, my uncle had your records and I just got hooked. And, you know, or my dad or his dad or whatever. So, you know, you've been around for 50 years, you're going to get to a lot of different age brackets.
50 years of rock and roll. 50 years of rock, these guys. And how many albums they've got is amazing. Nobody has done this. When you went to Japan in the 60s, that you were more popular than the Beatles.
Well, what happened was that the record company called Toshiba Records that had that put out our records over there, they had the Beatles and the Ventures. And they told us not only the first couple of years we outsold the Beatles, we outsold the Beatles 2-1.
Now, the Ventures were just inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland.
Whereas in 1955, when Stadium High School students Little Bill Englehart, Buck Ormsby, and other teenagers started jamming in the Englehart's garage on South 7th in Tacoma, began to rock. And whereas many music historians suggest that this was actually the beginning of garage and punk bands, and certainly was the beginning of Northwest rock and roll. And whereas Tacoma's Blue Notes, Wailers, Ventures, Jerry Miller, aka Moby Grape, Sonics, Vikings, Galaxies, Barons, Delgados, and the many bands of all races and creeds that would follow, created a fusion of melodious influences, called the Northwest Sound that would affect American and world music. And whereas the local doo-wop quartet, the Barons, recorded 10 releases on Imperial Records, Little Bill and the Blue Notes charted Tacoma's first hit song, I Love an Angel, and the Wailers' national hit, Tall Cool One, caught the fancy of Dick Clark and the American Bandstand. And whereas when the Wailers and Rockin' Robin Roberts, say that 3 times, refurbished the song Louie Louie, the world danced to the Tacoma sound. And whereas Tacoma Sonics came out of retirement to play the sold-out venues throughout Europe and are planning to share the Tacoma sound again in a trip to Japan. And whereas the Tacoma Historical Society will be paying tribute to Tacoma's rock legends at their annual Destiny Dinner scheduled for October 9th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Tacoma Yacht Club. Whereas rock legends Pat O'Day, Buck Ormsby, Don Wilson, Bill Englehart, Gail Harris, Jerry Miller, and others will be sharing the story of the Tacoma Sound and will formally propose the creation of Tacoma as a destination for musicians, visitors, and students called the House of Rock and Roll at this one-time only event. Now, therefore, I, Marilyn Strickland, Mayor of Tacoma, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim October 9th, 2011 as History of Northwest Rock and Roll Day in the City of Tacoma. Please take a look.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. And Buck Ormsby from the Wailers. And my my friend Kent Morrow, who recently passed away, lead singer in the Wailers, and I have started, to try to interest not only Tacoma Historical Society, what really transpired here as far as music goes in Tacoma, but it's spread all over the world, and it's still spreading all over the world with groups like Adventures, 250 albums, sold millions of records. The group The Sonics is now touring the world after 40 years of making music. And the Wailers started in 1959, and we were still going until just recently. Like I said, my friend passed away, but it's really something that the Tacoma Historical Society is taking notice of, and we appreciate that. We're going to do film presentations of all these artists that we're talking about at the event on Sunday, October 9th, and I appreciate the proclamation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please come forward to accept the proclamation.
Well, I had a little girl who was mean to me. I told her off for years indeed. I said, "You're a dirty robber. You're a dirty robber. Took my love and run away from me." Little girl, she's done me wrong. Mama down here, leave them all alone. She's a dirty robber. She's a dirty robber. Take your love, run away from you. Rock it now. Well, I went to her house to take her to a show. Found her there with some high-class show. Now she's a dirty robber. Dirty robber. Take my love, run away from me. Now if you meet a little girl like Alyssa, watch out. Take your money and she kick you out. Yeah, she's a dirty robber. Rock again now. Well, I take your money, take your car. Little girl, even took my guitar with that little dirty robber. Dirty robber. Take your love, run away from you.
Ah, good. Please.